All right. So today we're talking about harm none, and there's a very important focus in this chapter about making sure that we're healing ourselves and making sure that in all of our actions we're aligning with our true heart. And I think it's also important to point out when someone is coming from us from a place of trauma or a place of anger, a lot of times that is theirs to be healed. It would be very hard for all of us to take on the responsibility of healing everyone else's trauma. Some things we do have to do on our own, and sometimes we definitely need a more communal branch of healing, and this was truly the case last weekend, because there were definitely times when I was feeling the need to reach out to the people that were there around me for healing, or at least a sense of camaraderie to help kind of boost that healing. But there were also times when I personally could feel the need to spend time by myself with my thoughts. And it's in that kind of intrinsic healing, looking inside oneself, that I really want to talk about harm none. Because my favorite part about harm none, as we've always, the blurb we used to describe it in UNICULT is harm none, including yourself. And I think that the first part of that, harm none, can sometimes fall very much in alignment with things that we were taught growing up. We're taught to not push people, we're taught to not verbally belittle people. We're taught to, in our media, be good to each other. And obviously this depends on where you were raised, who raised you, what you were exposed to. So I'm talking in just the most general of terms. When you're a kid, you turn on Care Bears, and the Care Bears teach you to care for, other people and listen to their feelings and show empathy and help other people smile. And that's all really good. And I think where sometimes we start to feel a deficit in our lives as we're growing up, and where the teaching really is necessary, is in that second part, which is including yourself. I can only speak from personal experience, but I know a lot of times under the guise of wanting to help others or empathize with others or be there more for others, I am 100% sure I have caused myself harm. And that may be through holding on to relationships that no longer serve me, because I feel like I want to be there for someone. I want to be a safe space for a person, to unload whatever is going on, to unload trauma, to listen to that trauma, to speak to about whatever. And sometimes it can be very hard to recognize when a relationship gets to the point where taking in that energy is now doing much more harm to my internal state than it is actually benefiting the person who is confining in me. And that's where we kind of have this thing with harm none, where it includes making sure you don't cause harm to yourself, and that ends up being a much more introspective process. Whether it is through analyzing how you relate with other people, do you relate with people in a way that makes yourself very small? I know sometimes I've conflated being a good friend and giving people that I considered friends space to be the same as pushing down my own voice. And self-sacrificing my own thoughts and my own opinions and my own importance in situations just to make sure that I wasn't harming someone else's, position, or perceptively harming someone else's position, be it in a social group or a discussion, or just having a warped idea of who's spending, how much each person in a relationship gets to talk about their problems to the other person, and trying to find some sort of magical number of equal amount of time spent talking about our problems to each other. And there is a danger with feeling very self-sacrificial. Because while it's good to be there for our friends, and it's good to be there for our loved ones, and hold that space, it is very hard to realize when you're finally taking in too much negative energy, or you're opening up too much of yourself, or you're taking in so much of something else that yourself gets kind of buried under the weight of that. And that's not to say close people out, and that's not to say don't be there for people. Of course. We cannot be fully selfish beings 100%. We cannot be fully closed off beings to the entire world, because we'll be robbing ourselves of so much of existence. But what I do mean is more of a call to checking in with your own internal state more than we are. And that means recognizing when, wow, I've been on the phone with this person for 3 hours and it is 100% exhausting, and I'm starting to feel that. And that's not leaving me with energy to care for myself. So, and just like in this chapter of fundamentals, when it's saying to think about your internal state to make sure that what you're saying and what you believe is in line with your truth and aligned with your joy. And then if that's not harming anyone, then you're fine. Also, as far as making sure we're not harming ourselves, that includes checking in on our internal state to make sure there's not outside factors that are causing us to put stress on ourselves, our emotional well-being, our self-confidence, and our love that we may not be recognizing. Because in a lot of ways, or at least I was raised to be like this, there's a lot of, like, don't think about your own emotions, and, step back for other people, and put yourself to the side for other people, and make space for others, but don't take up space yourself. Thank you, Skippy. Yes, exactly. And that's the part of introspection that comes in the harm none, including yourself part of it. And I did a lot of work while we were on the retreat, looking into my own childhood trauma and my own childhood issues. And even when we go in ourselves, when we meditate, when we open up to our internal being, we can find places where we're harming ourselves. I found that my child self is very mean to me. Causes a lot of harm. And I was definitely not excited about this. But this was definitely, a part of harm none, including yourself. So we were very deep in the including yourself part. And that took a lot of inner dialogue. And it becomes, even when we're focusing in on ourselves, these ideas of listening for empathy and listening for understanding and checking in with yourself, all of these things can be done when it's just you. And so I've had experiences working with my child self where I've had to, listen to them like I would like a good you know, friend who is, you know, another bodied friend, you know, a regular everyday friend. But I have to open up and listen to them and find empathy and find understanding and almost see that not just as a part of me, but like its own being with thoughts and feelings and desires and needs and unfulfilled needs and worries, no matter how realistic those worries might be. Everything in this chapter about harm none, when it's talking about how we relate to upsetting other people, or how we relate to looking inside of ourselves, or how we approach people with empathy and approach people with joy, you can take the entire concept and you can pull it just into yourself. Because inside of us, there are just multitudes. We have a child self that we need to have a dialogue with, that we have to have empathy for, that we have to see, are they hurting? Is something that we're doing causing them harm? Is something that we're perceiving causing them harm? Or are they feel that we're harming them even if we don't intend to? My child self is super scared of abandonment. And so even innocuous things that I might do or say, it will trigger them to feel like they're being abandoned. And they'll feel harmed. I may not be intending to. But it's okay for me to have space and acknowledge that that's how they feel. And start that dialogue. And I'm having that whole dialogue just in my heart and up here. Just like we would with any other friend. You know, we may have visions for ourselves and ideas for the future, and I think when we set out this idea of abundance, or we set out this idea of creating a better future for ourselves, I think we also have to, you know, pay mind to, like, caring for, like, all the different ways that that can go, speaking with a future self to set a course. I know right now I'm working on my own abundance, and it makes me think about, well, how am I going to be in a year or two? What's that? What am I going to look like in a year or two? What might my concerns be? What paths or blockages do I feel right now that are causing me harm and causing me to not feel like I can reach that point? And so it is almost a consistent process of showing love, of showing empathy, of listening, and then introspection. It's a lot. It's a whole bunch. It's not easy. And so just these couple of steps. When we listen to our heart, when you're in harmony with your true heart, you will radiate harmony. And so when I go to talk to my child self, or I talk to any version, past, present, or future me, and I listen to my heart, I'm listening to multiple hearts, seeing if we're all in concert with each other. And if there's any bit of discord, then I'm listening to other people's experiences. And if we say that we hurt them, we hear them, we empathize, and we consider. And these are all things that we can do just with ourselves. You know, there may be a past self of me that feels hurt. And I try to hear them, and I empathize, and then I consider. And I think it's hard for our past selves or our child self to fully see the reality as it is right now, because they're not of that reality. My child self does not grasp everything that I'm doing all the time here in current day linear time space. And so part of hearing them and empathizing and considering is taking that time to explain, where am I at? Where am I going? What's the reality? And saying, you're not going to be abandoned. All my best friends in the world just told me that wasn't going to happen, and you honestly have to trust me. And if someone says that you hurt them, you're responsible for listening to their concerns. And again, I'm approaching this not just from like another person, or like I'm talking to Collar. I'm talking about with yourself. And we can truly hear out that inner voice that says that we're harming them. And we can take that into consideration. We take our own experience into consideration, and we can do our best to see from that child self's perspective, and we can validate their pain. This is not just a chapter for relating to, you know, your best friend at work, or to your parents, or to, you know, an ex-partner. And those are all really good reasons to go and look at this material, obviously. But this is also harm none, parentheses, including yourself. And you can take both of these pages and apply it only to yourself and other versions of yourself. And sometimes I think that's a lot harder. We have ways that when we're feeling exhausted or we're feeling energetically run down, that we can move away from, take space from friends. We can take space from coworkers. We can take space from people in our biological or our chosen family. That's all very possible. But I think the harder work is when we're working with our child self, or our inner thoughts, or other versions of ourselves that we're not comfortable with. Because those don't 100% always go away. And that's why we talk about integration and really folding everything into ourselves, or at least reaching some sort of harmony where everything can coexist and feel better. And my child self feels a lot better right now. I did a whole bunch of work. But that doesn't mean that they're gone, or that I can close them off at all. It still means that I have to check in, and it still means I live with all those experiences and trauma and hurt and pain. But I have much better tools for dealing with it. And so sometimes we don't always get the luxury of being able to block someone on social media, or block someone on our phones, or just not answer the phone, or answer the door, or reply to that email. We don't get to do that for ourselves. We don't have a way to, I mean, unless, I guess there's ways that you could. But when we look into not harming ourselves and learning to not harm ourselves, and that becomes a more continued vigilance and a more continued dialogue. And it's not easier, but it's worth it. This is a very compact book of very easy to explain, but harder to execute ideas. And it's very beautiful, and it takes work, and the work is worth it. And you're worth it. And so take of that what you will. But when we talk about harming none and including ourselves, that really, what I mean is that is really just folding in all those concepts of how we understand other people's pain, and not just applying them to every people in everyday life, but it means deeply integrating them into the way we talk to ourselves. And that's how we can do the including yourself part of harm none. Alright, yes, you are worth it. You deserve near constant joy. This is brilliant. Let's look here. I'm looking in the chat here real quick. Yeah, if I miss a joke, I'm sorry. I'm just going a million miles an hour. I had a friend who worked on Oka Gabba Gabba. Alright, everyone. So that is the sermon. I hope someone got something out of it. Take some time to not harm yourself. Check in with yourself. Show yourself love. Show yourself empathy. use the same love and understanding that we give to other people. Give that to yourself. Same rules apply. You're worth it. Spirit of Uni. Hey. Come here. You want to do the prayer? You want to do the prayer? Okay, great. Come here. Oh, 1 second. He's doing the big stretch. There we go. Oh, let's do the prayer, mister. I'm going to hold you like a big baby for the whole internet. Okay. You ready? Spirit of Uni, bless all the cats. Thanks, caller. A Spirit of Uni, thank you for bringing us all together here today in this amazing virtual church. Bless all the amazing members of UNICULT, past, present, and future. Bless all of our guides and aliens and higher powers and animal companions and plants and insects and everything that we touch, that we can share, send, and receive love from. Uni bless. Caller. Everyone, let's caller. Alright, everyone. If you're wanting to hang out in the UNICULT member Discord, feel free to go ahead and hop over to Uni Brunch. That's typically in the video chat, though you don't have to be on video. If you're wanting to know anything more about UNICULT, feel free to give us a call on the hotline, 1-833-UNICULT. Operators will be standing by on a volunteer basis to answer your calls if we're available. And feel free to check everything out at joinunicult.com. That'll give you all the links that you need to go. Or you can look up UNICULT on Etsy to join. $11 gives you the greatest membership you could ever ask. And it's a lifetime membership, and it never goes away. It never goes away. Your membership is never ending. Like Collar's hunger. He's a hungry boy. Alright, and we'll see everyone next week. Uni bless.